Ever since the OnePlus 5, Chinese smartphone maker OnePlus has put most of its efforts in improving the camera experience. The OnePlus 5 and the 5T had some notable improvements over their predecessors, but were still lagging behind other flagships of their time. This year, we have the company's 7th attempt at the flagship called the OnePlus 6, and with it, a brand new main camera sensor which looks pretty promising. We'll be comparing the OnePlus 6's new 16-megapixel sensor against the Huawei P20 Pro and the Samsung Galaxy S9 Plus. Two smartphones that have proven to have excellent cameras, but at the same time cost a lot more than the OnePlus 6. Now our aim for this comparison is to see how close the OnePlus 6 can get to the other flagships, or maybe even beat some of them when it comes to image quality and video performance. In our outdoor test, the OnePlus 6 captures excellent detail of the structure, the plants and the trees on the sides. There is minor noise visible in the shadow regions of the palm trees once you zoom in all the way, but overall it's very good. The level of detail is also easily comparable to the other two phones, which is quite impressive. However, the color tone of all these pictures are vastly different. This was shot on a sunny afternoon, which is a bit hard to tell looking at the picture shot by the OnePlus 6. The Huawei P20 Pro has the most dramatic looking shot thanks to more punchy colors, but the contrast is a bit over the top. The Samsung Galaxy S9 Plus comes in the closest in accurately capturing the white balance and colors of the scene. In our next test, we have an indoor shot but with plenty of natural light pouring in through the roof. The HDR mode in all phones do an excellent job here, although the P20 Pro outshines the others when it comes to exposure and producing vivid colors. The extra bit of sharpness also gives the picture a good sense of depth, and the dynamic range is also very good. Looking at 100% crop, we notice that the P20 Pro also has the most detailed shot of the three, followed closely by the Galaxy S9 Plus. The OnePlus 6 fails to capture subtle details like the texture on the tiles of the wall, and looking at the objects on the side of the frame, we also notice a fair bit of noise. In close-up shots, we ran into a bit of an issue with the OnePlus 6 as it struggled to focus on very small objects, and even after multiple tries, it simply refused to lock focus. At times the phone would eventually lock focus after trying slightly different positions and angles, but it can be annoying especially when you're trying to capture those fleeting moments. We didn't face any such issues with the Huawei and Samsung. In fact, we were able to get a lot closer to our subjects, like the shot of this butterfly in this scene, than the OnePlus 6 typically allows. The P20 Pro also offers a much shallower depth of field compared to the other two. When shooting in a dimly lit room, the OnePlus 6 captures the brightest image compared to the other two, and despite having the highest ISO, it also handles noise extremely well. Level of detail is also on par with that of Samsung and Huawei when you look at the little objects at the end of the room. When shooting at night, the OnePlus 6 loses out to the other two as it relies on a really high ISO sensitivity to brighten up the scene, thus resulting in lots of noise and poor detail. In this scene, the photo shot by the OnePlus 6 uses ISO 2000, while the P20 Pro bumps it up to just ISO 800. The S9 Plus has the lowest ISO value of just 320 here, as it takes advantage of its large f1.5 aperture to capture more light. In a macro test in low light, the OnePlus 6 captures good detail and depth of field, but the overall image is a bit dark despite the ISO being bumped up to 4000. It does capture very good detail, especially for the surrounding leaves and the pillars in the background with little noise. The P20 Pro captures a brighter image, but the white balance is a bit off as the color temperature is a bit too warm for our liking. The S9 Plus has the best image here, albeit on the softer side, and it does this with a pretty low ISO value of just 500. The OnePlus 6 has a dual LED flash which is quite effective in lighting up our subject. The spread is good and it manages to retain the original colors nicely. Upon closer inspection of our subject's face though, we notice slight pixelation and blurry edges in the shadow regions of the skin. We didn't find this to happen with the other two phones. The OnePlus 6 doesn't have a second telephoto sensor, but the company has still kept the 2x button in the viewfinder. Pressing this does give you a zoomed-in view, but at this point, you're essentially doing a digital zoom. Naturally, our subject appears soft with low level of details. The P20 Pro has 3x optical zoom, which gives you much sharper view of your subject, but once again, Huawei's post-processing can be a bit too aggressive for its own good. The S9 Plus has 2x optical zoom and provides the best results under good lighting. The OnePlus 6 does a decent job of stitching together panoramas. However, this can only be done when holding the phone vertically and from left to right, which is a weird restriction to have. Details are very good and on par with the other two phones. The P20 Pro had some distortion in the perspective as parts of the train tracks were slightly warped, but other than that, it also managed good details. Portrait mode on the OnePlus 6 works decently well in detecting edges around our subjects with some very minor anomalies. Details on our subject's face is a bit soft for our liking, but some may prefer it that way. The P20 Pro has excellent background blur and overall a much more vivid picture with far better detail on our subject's face. However, some may argue that the depth effect can be a bit too much at times, and in this case, our subject tends to look almost photoshopped into the scene. The S9 Plus uses the telephoto camera for shooting portraits, so you get a narrower field of view from the same distance. However, details are excellent in daylight. In low light, the OnePlus 6 handles colors very well, although the shadow regions appear slightly pixelated due to the high ISO noise reduction process. This also causes blurry edges around the collar of our subject's t-shirt. The P20 Pro has the best detail and edges are well defined. The S9 Plus suffers the most here as its telephoto sensor is known to have weak low light performance. When shooting objects, the OnePlus 6 has fairly good hit ratio of detecting edges. Colors are also soothing and well captured. The P20 Pro nails the edge detection here and also offers much better detail in the coffee beans compared to the other two. The S9 Plus once again fails to capture a very pleasing image, although it does blur out the right portions of the image. The front camera on the OnePlus 6 manages to capture colors quite accurately, but we did notice selfies having quite a bit of grain even under natural light. The P20 Pro captures a much softer image, which unfortunately doesn't look very natural. The S9 Plus has the best balance of skin tones and details in our outdoor test. The Samsung and the Huawei have a portrait mode for the selfie camera, which the OnePlus 6 lacks. In low light, we found the OnePlus 6 to handle skin tones much better than the other two. The screen flash is actually decently powerful and the white balance of the image isn't affected. The P20 Pro captures a very washed out image without the flash, and with it, the white balance kind of goes for a toss, resulting in a very unnatural look. The Galaxy S9 Plus ended up with a slight reddish hue in our sample with no flash, and with it, has the most evenly lit selfie with the least noise but at the cost of some detail. The OnePlus 6 supports optical and electronic image stabilization, and this helps vastly when shooting 4K video at 30 FPS. Even when walking around, the phone manages to counter all the little shakes very well, and the side effects of electronic stabilization were masked pretty well in our test. Compared to the Galaxy S9 Plus, the quality and level of detail is nearly on par. The Huawei P20 Pro captures good detail too, but the lack of stabilization is very disappointing. Colors also seem a little too oversaturated for our taste. The OnePlus 6 also supports 4K at 60 FPS, which looks great, and even in low light there's no real visible noise. The Galaxy S9 Plus also has this option and performs equally well. Sadly, Huawei's custom silicon doesn't support this higher frame rate shooting mode, so you're limited to 30 FPS at 4K. The OnePlus 6 also shoots 480p slow motion video at 720p resolution. There's a lot of visible interlacing here, but at least you're not limited to short bursts. Samsung's 960fps video capture is still among the best of the three, even though the quality is limited to 720p. The P20 Pro supports 960fps slow motion too, however it's incredibly difficult to capture the right moment since this process is not automated like Samsung's offering. The quality of footage that we captured didn't really turn out too good. The new camera in the OnePlus 6 is quite capable, and at times, we found it coming close to or even matching the quality of the more expensive offerings like the Samsung Galaxy S9 Plus and the Huawei P20 Pro. Now this is a commendable achievement considering how much cheaper it is when compared to the other two. It does fall slightly short when it comes to capturing finer details as the Galaxy S9 Plus, or doesn't quite have the dynamic range of the Huawei P20 Pro, and the intermittent focusing issue on close-up subjects gets a bit annoying at times. The reliance on really high ISO levels in low light does introduce a lot of noise and muddy details in some landscape shots. However, at a starting price of just 34,999 rupees, it's safe to say that the OnePlus 6 offers very good value for money if you're looking for a competent smartphone camera that can come close to other flagships without the premium cost. So thanks for watching our comparison, and for all things tech, log on to gadgets360.com.